Hello and welcome to Comic Cuts, the panel show. I'm Kev F Sutherland, the bloke who writes and draws comics for Beano and Marvel and now adapts Shakespeare into graphic novels for kids, and also has a hand in the Scottish Falsetto sock puppet theatre. And this is your favourite podcast, which has an occasionally remote connection to comics. Don't worry if you don't know or care anything about comics. Half the time, neither do my guests, and it doesn't hurt. My guests have brought with them a panel from a comic or something close, and we're going to see if we can identify it and talk about it. Maybe we and you will learn something about comics we didn't already know. Or maybe we'll just show off a bit and have an enjoyable chat. Let's see. Joining me today are Helen Quigley and Paul Savage.
Hello.
Comic Cuts. We're looking at a panel, and we comprise a panel. There's a few of us. So the panel sees a panel, and we talk about the comics from the panel we discussed, and we call it Comic Cuts. I've asked everyone on the panel to bring a panel to the panel. You'll be able to see these images in the show notes and on the artwork for the podcast episode, depending where you get your podcasts. But don't worry, you don't have to, because we're going to be able to describe them. But first, let's describe each other. Helen and Paul. Helen first. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to the wonderful world of comics. Who's Phyllis Twig?
Oh my God, how long have you got? She was radio's first dramatist, but was miscredited for the best part of 100 years when it was thought that someone else had written the first radio drama and performed it in 1924. Phyllis did The Truth About Father Christmas in 1922.
And how did you come to know about Phyllis Twig and her authorial history?
It was through a couple of routes. I mean, it was the BBC's 100-year anniversary in 2022. So obviously radio drama was part of that, since it was one of the very earliest types of performance that the BBC put out. So I knew about that. Also, living in Chelmsford, there is that radio heritage via Marconi and Wireless and the Riddle Hut and Dame Nellie Melba. And of course, the origins of the BBC, as a result, started in Chelmsford because of the technology. And
there we have Helen's claims to fame. Helen is a voiceover artist and an audio producer, a radio producer and a podcast producer. But Chelmsford is the first thing that comes up on your CV, it seems.
It has come in handy as a talking point. I mean, look at us now. So
Paul,
that's nice and easy.
Paul, where would come up first on your CV?
Hopefully comedian, because that is what my day job, as it were, is. But I'm also a cartoonist. I also have done about 900 different jobs. So that's undiagnosed and then diagnosed ADHD for you. So I like to keep what I call a portfolio career. Lots of different.
And an international one. About this time of year, we're recording this, listener, in January. Don't you gad off to the other side of the planet?
And I'm doing so very shortly. I'll be off to the Perth Adelaide Fringes and then the Melbourne International Comedy Festival for 3 months. Getting vitamin D and not being sad in February.
How does this work, paying for itself? Is it phenomenally expensive to go to Australia, New Zealand and work?
Yeah, it's the sort of big upfront costs of flights and stuff like that, accommodation. Luckily, my landlord is selling my house, so I'm moving out anyway, which helps. But yes, I'll be off to. There is cost to it, but also it's quite good to sell tickets in other countries. That you just find being English is sometimes a little bit of a quirk. They're like, oh, that's nice, and quite a lot of the Australians don't. They don't take that festival season particularly. They're sort of using it to work up shows for other ones. So,
right. Oh, you mean your fellow performers?
So you turn up with a fully formed show, and all the Australian audiences are like, "Oh, thank you, someone's trying," which is very nice.
I found when we performed with the Scottish Falsetto Sock Puppet Theatre in Adelaide, that was the only place in Australia we went to, the most disturbing thing was that nobody had come from nearby, because there isn't anywhere nearby. If you asked the audience where they were from Adelaide, yes. Except for a few voices at the back who would say Melbourne, because they were comedians.
Yeah, Yeah, it's they're very like, and Perth's even more like that because Perth is just one big town in the middle of nowhere.
Do you have to?
I mean,
Do you have to tweak?
it's the most isolated large settlement on Earth.
Do you have to tweak material to adjust to taste? Do they understand you?
Yes, they understand you. They mostly get our culture, so it's not like Americans where you have to explain certain just differences in culture. They won't let you be as self-deprecating. You can do a couple of lines about yourself being an idiot, and then they'll go, "Oh, come on, be a bit nicer to yourself," which I actually find quite charming.
Helen, has your work taken you on international travels as far afield as Australia and New Zealand?
No, just holidays, really. I mean, most of my work is based in my home office, so I don't need to do an awful lot of travelling. I'm adopted Chelmsford. I'm not an Essex girl.
Oh,
I have to
you're
say,
originally from the north, I
I'm
believe.
up to north. I'm a monkey hanger originally, but I've been in
Ah.
Chelmsford a
You will
lot
need
longer.
to elaborate upon the derivation of monkey hanger.
Oh, it's during the French, was it about 1812-ish, something around that, when the various wars were happening. A French ship, she was shipwrecked on the rocks off Hartlepool, and the crew were all washed up. And the ship's mascot was wearing a French uniform, and that was a monkey. And the people of Hartlepool have never seen a French person before. They just saw this monkey in a uniform and assumed he was French, so they hanged him. It's the short version.
That's what I've heard, but I've heard there is actually a link to comics
Yes.
because the newspaper cartoons of the time would have
Yes.
Your Britain would be either represented by a lion or by John Bull. Uncle Sam, was represented in America, and French people were often represented by monkeys. And so they were just like, oh, that is what a French person looks like. We've seen it in those documentary cartoons.
And of course, there was that headline about the cheese-eating surrender monkeys, wasn't there? Which pops up now and then
that
as
might
a
be the
headline.
reason why.
Yeah.
How wonderful. Oh, great to have a comics connection, and how appropriate for this podcast. Why, it's almost like we're linked telepathically. On which subject? Oh, yeah, we don't just throw this show together. Helen, you were involved recently in a mass telepathic experiment.
Yes. Well, again, this ties back to Phyllis Twig, which was The Truth About Phyllis Twig was the drama that I made, directed with Paul Carenza, who, of course, you know very well.
Friend of the podcast.
Yes, he is. Yes, he wrote the script for it, and we worked hard on a pitch and got it made. But he's such a fan of broadcasting history, the BBC's in particular, in those very early days. And while we were working on the Phyllis Twig story, he said, I want to do a dramatisation of the first telepathy experiment on the BBC, which was a panel of people, not unlike this, a few more of them. I think there was 10 in total, including the BBC staff. And basically, they challenged the listeners in a live recording in a live broadcast, in 1925, to guess what the panel were thinking. And we had a lot of fun with that, because it transpires at the time the panel were not really taking this terribly seriously, because it sounded like they'd been put in a room at the Savoy, round the corner from the BBC, fairly close to the bar. And as a result, were quite refreshed and not taking it as seriously as the BBC or the listeners would have liked. So it was a lot of fun to record, and that's on Paul's podcast, his British Broadcasting Century podcast, if you want to hear it.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it, from radio being essentially invented as we know it in 1922 to just 100 years later, everybody having a podcast.
Well, the BBC's broadcast was 1922. Radio's been around a lot longer than that.
Well, the subject of this podcast is comics. My guests have brought in a panel apiece, and we're going to look at them. I honestly, flip of a coin, don't know whose picture we should look at first. Who would like to volunteer to have theirs examined first?
I'm going to say Helen. I'm going to be charming.
Right, then, brace yourselves. Can we all see a lovely big image on the screen?
We can.
Yes.
Then I am going to ask Paul to try and describe what he sees in front of him. Listener at home, you'll find this in the show notes. You'll find it where on the holding image, wherever you get your podcasts from, but you shouldn't need to, because I'm sure Paul is eloquent enough to sum this up.
Okay, so it's three gentlemen in hazmat suits in a by a staircase, looking under the stair cupboard, and then there's it's a monochrome. There's a man saying right at the front of the shot saying he's never mixed with his own kind, and yes, there's sort of manga-y effects to be like that's shock. I think the sort of right at the top, that sort of starburst pattern to just go, oh.
Right. For the panelologists at home that study line and technique, I can say it is a black and white line drawing intended to be printed in black and white. The voice bubble is typeset, which is quite an unusual thing to see. It's done by certain people at certain times to give a certain effect, hand lettering being much, much more common in almost all comic strip. I have a vague notion where this might be from because it looks like a magazine with which I'm familiar. It's a magazine which I think
know. Is that helpful?
Sorry?
I think I know if that's
Well,
helpful.
I'm going to let you have first guess. I'm just going to circle around it a bit. The line drawing technique, I think it's from a humorous magazine, but this is a line drawing technique which comes across as serious. You could very easily expect this to be in a dramatic magazine, even given the nature of the expression on the face and the hazmat suits, even from a horror magazine. But I think both Paul and I are going to guess that it's not. Paul, what are you going to guess it is?
I'm going to guess that that's from Viz, and I'm going to go even more, and I'm going to say that's one of Lee Healy and Barney Farmer's.
Aha. Yeah, I would have said Lee Healy. Yeah.
I love Lee Healy and Barney Farmer. I think they've just got such a... it's the right-wing Mail, the Daily Mail one that I'm most familiar with their work from. The angry man online in the comment section. But they do a wonderful line in bleakness. They just, so many of their ones are just, it's a horrible world.
Yeah, and this one is bleak, and it really makes me laugh every time I see it. So
well, fill us in then, Helen.
It's the Mail Online. That's the name I'm looking for. I was struggling around it. The Mail Online. That's the one.
No, I had to do a little bit of digging. I mean, it was quite easy to find out. You're right. It's from Viz. I think it was from circa, is the best I can do, February 2018. And yes, it is Lee Healy and Barney Farmer. Yeah. But I couldn't quite figure out why it appeared or when exactly, because it seems to be a one-off strip, but I'm not 100% sure if it was in Viz itself. As you say, it may have been a Mail on. Well, I can't see this being in the Mail Online. It is pretty dark. And it's called The Green Grass. And this panel is during a bird flu outbreak. And the men in the hazmat suits have come to Keith Harris's house, broken into the house, fought their way in by kicking the door down. They've come for Orville. But, Orville's a puppet, as he says. He's never mixed with his own kind. He's this little green, cute bird. I mean, who could possibly have dobbed in poor Orville to the authorities? Well, the last panel very clearly reveals that it's that bloody monkey. Cuddles has dobbed him in.
Cuddles, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually, what I really like about this strip is, yes, it is horribly dark, but the only colour elements in it, which you can't see in the panel I sent you, are Cuddles and Orville and the flames as he's incinerated.
Oh, fantastic. Viz is the greatest of British satire, isn't it? I struggle to think of anything that's been done on other mediums that's come close to what Viz has done. Because for a start, they sail very close to the wind in putting actual celebrities in there. I don't know how they legal it, but most shows, certainly on radio and telly, steer very close steer away from representing an actual person, especially in more recent years, because people get very sensitive about being shown. Is Keith Harris still with us?
If I remember rightly, they did get one sued by Trini and Susanna,
yes,
who complained about them using their image and likeness, and they just went, "What are you going to do? Like, we've already made it now." I think that was their legal case. Was just. Yeah, we don't apologise.
I've
And
spoken on stage to Graham Jury and Simon Thorpe, and we spoke about their legal problems with a couple of strips. One of them, which Alex Collier did actually, which was Kappa Slapper. Um, she had to
Mm.
change her name to Tasha Slapper when Kappa, the clothes manufacturers, took umbrage at their name being used. And the other one, of course, was the strip Thieving Gypsy Bastards, which was mentioned in the United Nations because that was a race hate crime for
Yeah,
which they were brought to book. So they don't like talking about that one.
I mean,
yeah.
I was saying I like this strip in particular because I bought it for my husband and it hangs in his office, so I see it quite a lot because he was always a big Viz fan and always used to have a Profanosaurus in the toilet, which of course with the advent of phones that's gone. Don't sit and read on the toilet, kids. And I really liked it as well because my granddad absolutely hated Orville. He always used to call him awful when I was growing up, and I had an Orville puppet and things. So it amuses me so much that this saccharinely cute bird getting caught by the authorities and killed is just, yeah, sorry, that's me being horribly dark.
You've now got me wondering, are there ventriloquists anymore? Certainly,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
used to, they used
Nina
to be.
Conti still does a lot of ventriloquism. She does some
Nina
great
Um,
stuff.
Conti,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
the last year at Fringe, Max Fulham, who's a young comedian who does really good vent stuff. But yes, there are. It is a dying art, but yeah, he's very good. Um,
Keith Harris and Orville crossed over, didn't they? I remember seeing them for the first time, and this will show my age, on the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club. Before Orville, he did it with the monkey, because what was the monkey's name?
Cuddles, yeah.
Cuddles. And there was a joke, the punchline for which was a bit on the side. I
hmm.
can't remember the gist of the rest of the joke, but I do know that once he started appearing on kids' TV, that gag had gone.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
he
Didn't
went
Bob
back to
Carroll? Didn't
doing.
Bob Carroll G's used to do a spit the dog routine that was very much for adults? Or oh no, who the teddy bear? I'm doing a puppet motion with my hand that
We are
no
doing
one
puppet
can
motions
see.
with our hands here, listeners. Yes, Bob Carroll G's did Spit the Dog. And I think at that time, there were the two divided circuits. Yeah, you'd have the comedy club circuit or the after dinner speaker circuit, whatever existed in those days. And then kids' TV was the only TV there was. There wasn't the opportunity at the turn of the 1980s for comedians of that sort to cross over onto TV. So they had to ameliorate their grown-up acts. And yes, they did game shows, didn't they? And they did Tiz Was, and that was about your lot.
Was it Huggy Bear I'm thinking of?
Huggy Bear is a
Nookie
character
Bear.
from Starsky and Hutch.
Is it
It's
Nookie
something
Bear?
else. What? Which one?
Nookie Bear.
Nookie
Yes,
Bear,
that's it.
Nookie Bear.
Huggy
That's
Bear,
where the
Huggy Bear.
gag a bit on the
Yeah.
side comes from.
Mhm.
Nookie, what's that mean? It means a bit on the side. Oh, I'm
Yes.
sure some comic historian will be able to put two and two
Oh, I'm sure.
together.
Yeah. No, Nookie Bear. There was a kids version he did that I remember. Nookie Bear as being sort of very, yeah, pared back, suitable for children. And then I remember watching a TV documentary about it, and he did this routine for adults in the clubs that was absolute filth with this puppet.
Yes, back in the
Hmm.
day when they used to refer to things as blue. Actually, in more recent
Mm.
years, I've been asked by promoters of shows, is your material blue? And I figure, that's not
Do
apt
you mean
unless your material
what?
comes from the 1960s. Paul, do you get asked if your material's blue?
No, just if I can, like, do you swear much? And yeah, I can work clean, and I do. Do church gigs and stuff like that, and kids gigs. But also, it's interesting when you'll go through your notes just before one of those gigs and going, well, that's out, that's right out, that won't be used because yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
We've spoken a lot about Keith Harris and Orville. Back to Viz itself. I wonder what numbers it sells, because remember, once upon a time, 1 million copies were sold. It rivaled the Radio Times for the best-selling magazine in the entire country. But that was 1989.
Wow. I remember being on my first introduction to Viz was, of course, a
What?
school trip. And I was sitting at the back of the bus with my friends. Someone pulled out a copy of Viz and some pickled eggs. So I always associate Viz with eating pickled eggs.
I think they'd actually probably quite like that. The, the pub that I used to drink in I grew up in Wolverhampton, and it was a lovely old Victorian pub, but they had Vizes above the urinals that they used to change regularly, and then the management changed and they didn't change them for about 10 years. So there was one called Driving Mr. David, which was about the three cockatiels the three little mice in David Beckham's head, who move him around. And the last one is basically he's just trying to go to the toilet, and he pees his pants, and then he goes back in and talks to Posh Spice, and the three cockatiels that live in her head go, he's pissed himself again. But that was
So
there for a
dark.
good decade. Yeah.
Of course, it shouldn't be forgotten that my first published work was actually in Viz. In 1988, I have a strip which appears in the big pink stiff one, the collected edition. My strip
Lovely.
is called Tarquin Hoylett, He Has to Go to the Toilet.
Lovely stuff. One of my quotes that I use on the back of my book was the quality of your work was well presented, which was a rejection letter from Viz.
So we didn't like the content, but it looked nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Paul, you do quite a lot of cartoon books. Is the cartoon material based on your stand-up, or is it separate?
It's stuff that doesn't work in stand-up. I can be as boring or as interesting as you want me to be on this, but basically with comics and with stand-up, it's almost purely an audio format. You can do little act outs, but if you're setting a scene, you have to go, okay, so it's this and it's this and it's this and blah 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 blah. Whereas you can just, draw a thing and everyone goes, oh, immediately it's, that's clearly a pub. This is clearly this, blah 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 blah. And quite a lot of it's wordplay, which I don't tend to do a lot of in my set. The audiences just don't seem to like it, but quite a lot of my wordplay works better as a visual image.
Yeah, there's a few comedians who the work in the one area and the other and never the twain. Moose Elaine does stuff which is spot cartoons in Private Eye, in fact, quite often. And
Yes.
yeah, the
I
one-line gags.
nearly chose one of his because I have a book on the shelf of some of his sort of single-page puns and things, and yeah.
Yeah, the other one is Olaf Falafel.
Yeah.
He does. Beck Hill's a really good cartoonist, but I was going to say she doesn't do enough of them, but like she doesn't, like she's a very busy woman. Yes, I'm not. That sounded. It was. I preempted myself before it sounded like I was telling her off. But no, she's a excellent cartoonist and just does the occasional one when she fancies it.
Yeah, cartoons and comic strips crossing over from one medium to another is quite often problematic. And Viz, I think, have exemplified that with the few examples that have been tried. There's the Fat Slags, which has been done both in animation and I think in live action. Roger Melly, the Man on the Telly, which was done as animation with Peter Cook doing the voice. The Sid the Sexist was done with Jimmy Nail. And there have been other adaptations, none of which I think have worked.
Yeah, the Fat Slags movie, Simon Donald, who founded Viz, was just like, it's nothing to do with us. Like, we sold the rights. Don't come and talk to us. But yes, it's I think some of it is the idea wants to be in the format that it's in, and yeah, there's certain stuff that just doesn't work when it's transferred back into a different medium. Sometimes you just go, yeah, that's like a stand-up show wants to be a stand-up show, and a comic wants to be a comic, and a cartoon like animation wants to be animation. Just sometimes they don't want to cross over.
Yeah, well, we've seen similar things when they've taken stand-up routines and tried to expand those into sketches. I remember Tramadol Nights, Frankie Boyle's material, which is obviously the best stand-up material, but visualizing it with actors in sketches suddenly removed whatever had been funny in the first place.
Yeah.
There is some, it was interesting you were saying about crossovers. So I've been doing a bit of work on a podcast, which is a comedy sketch podcast. And I know you know Fraser Geeson.
Yes.
And he obviously does a bit of stand-up stuff, bit of writing, does comics. And we're working on the next episode of the podcast, Listen Through the Brown Window. And he's going through his sketches and cartoon work that he's done to see what might translate into audio. So even that is now crossing over. But I find it interesting, the number of comics people who are work in comics print.
Oh, right. The comics who work in comics.
Yeah.
You know what? That's one area where we really ought to expand the vocabulary, because the word comics is so problematic over the years. Mm-hmm. Comic meant comic, and then it meant comics, and then comics meant comics.
Comics then becomes graphic novel. Yeah.
And then Comic-Cons. The number of times I go to a Comic-Cons and there's no comics there. Paul, you and I were at a Comic-Con very recently. We shared a table. Thought Bubble.
We should have had two full days together, but due to a printing error, not my fault, they did not ship enough books for me, so I sold out on the first day and had to go home.
Terrible problem to have.
I think you should lead with the selling out bit.
Sat on a pallet somewhere.
Yes, of course, yeah. Maybe I did meet you then, because I was at Thought Bubble.
Yes.
I certainly saw Kev.
You were there on the Saturday, very possible.
Yeah, both days, yeah.
And Helen, you were at Thought Bubble with B7 Media. What did B7 Media
Well,
do?
B7 Media's branch that is B7 Comics, yeah. So set up as B7 Media has existed for quite a long time, making films, TV, mainly audio drama in the last few years. Andrew Mark Sewell has a background in comics and publishing himself, and he wanted to move into doing more publishing. So we have since published Hancock the Lad Himself, which is the biography of Tony Hancock. That's by Stephen Walsh and Keith Page. And we've just released the third issue of Pilgrim, which is a sort of sci-fi adventure comic strip. There's issue 4 coming in the next year.
Did I see Pilgrim in T.G. Jones / W.H. Smith?
Yes, you did. Yeah, we did manage to get it in there, and doing that thing of every time I was in a different city, popping in to have a look and moving it up a shelf or two if it was on the bottom, that sort of thing. You know, completely guilty. I will put my hand up to that. That's by John Freeman and Neil Edwards, done the art for that, and Ronald. His name has slipped out of my mind. Who did the cover? Hang on, I might have to go and find a copy and have a look. I'll come back to you, because he did the first issues. He did some alternate covers for the first issue, and he usually does the main cover.
So, just to remind us, the image that we have just been looking at was what again?
The Green Grass.
From Viz.
From Viz, yes, by Lee Healy and Barney Farmer.
And now, let's have a look at what Paul has brought in to share with us. Can we all see that on our screen?
Yes.
Now, an image has popped up on our screen. Again, I'm unfamiliar with it. Helen, would you like to describe what you see before you?
This actually is throwing me back to Sunday night when I was at the Comedy Store, watching the Comedy Store Players. So this is a black and white hand-drawn panel. About half of it, the top half, is the speech bubble with hand-lettered writing. Shall I read the writing?
Oh, do please.
Okay. What's your name, mate? Erling. Off you. My name's Erling, and I'm a Rudiger coward, and off Erling. So most of it is asterisked out with lots of swears, which I was not going to attempt to guess to fill in. So you've got weird parping noises instead.
If you want to know what those are called, apparently those are called Grawlixes.
Grawlixes.
Word of the day.
When you do the asterisks, especially the skull and crossbones ones for swears. That's apparently the technical term in comics for it.
Listener at home, this is what you call an educational podcast. That's what you call content. That's what you've tuned in for. They're called
education,
Grawlixes.
Entertainment, and information. So it's I suspect this is a middle-aged white man thing. So he's sort of late 30s, early 40s man with a beard. He's holding up a microphone, looks like an SM58 audio analog, standing in front of a suspiciously familiar logo that says, I think it says Banter Store. So I think we know what it's aiming at. I've no idea. This is it. My comics knowledge is fairly limited,
Well,
despite the amount of time I've been working on it. So,
if I
Don't
can
worry,
chip,
this is fairly niche.
if I can chip in from the point of view of the panelologists, those of us who study line and technique, this is black and white line drawing, but with wash. And I would say the wash, the grey tones, have been done with a brush in the good old-fashioned brush style. If they haven't, if they've been done on Photoshop, they've been done in order to look like they've been done with a brush, and masterfully so. Whether it would have to be printed in black and white in these modern times, I don't know, because it's definitely modern. We're looking at something, I would say, from the 21st century, from the last half dozen years, quite possibly. The Banter Store logo, based on the Comedy Store logo, very familiar. The brick wall that appears behind the... Why comedy is performed in front of brick walls, I don't know. It doesn't help. A curtain's better. But they've represented the brick wall. They've represented...
it's edgy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's edgy. It's unfinished. It's industrial.
It looks like you're in New York and it's 1978, I think is what they're going for. Anyway, this guy is talking at a microphone, but I feel he may be supposed to be a real person again, because I think we're looking at a football satirical strip. And my guess is it's the strip that runs in The Guardian. Helen, did you want to have more of a guess?
Oh yes, I think I know who you're referring to. Yeah, but I'm not sure of the name.
And neither am I. Paul, let us know.
It's David Squires in The Guardian, who I do believe is England's greatest living Englishman. He's just you don't need to know about football to get his strips. I mean, it helps massively. Also helps massively if you're into golden era Simpsons, because he'll occasionally just throw in a golden era Simpsons reference for us. But I think he's like, he does serious ones as well. When they were talking about the World Cup in Qatar, he had a illustration that he did of basically a slave labor worker who was building the stadiums out in Qatar, and they did a whole panel of everything that he'd given first person account of, of the getting up at 6 a.m. and working in 40-degree days, of being really badly treated. And they did that as a comic in the World Cup football coverage that the Guardians did, which was very good. But this is sort of his so the guy on stage is supposed to be Jamie Carragher, but he's definitely supposed to be who's a former footballer, now a commentator, but he's definitely supposed to be Paul Smith, the resident MC at Hot Water in Liverpool, who's gone viral a number of times with his crowd work clips. So that's the sort of thing that he's just mashing two together. And yeah, it was quite funny because I clipped this and sent this to Paul Smith, because we started out years ago, very similar times, and then obviously his career's gone stratospheric with the crowd work clips and then doing the tours off the back of it. And so I was like, I knew you were a bit famous, but I didn't know you were being satirized in The Guardian famous. That's quite impressive.
That's an interesting thing with comedy, both on the page and on the stage, is the points of reference. I always worry, because of my age, that I'm going to make references to like the pop music of my childhood, and a swathe of the audience won't get it. And I've done stuff which has been about pop culture references, like Doctor Who. A lot of Doctor Who has come into the sock puppet show. And again, you realize when you listen to the audience that, oh, there's a portion who know what you're on about and a portion who don't. It's a hard thing to judge sometimes, isn't it?
It's a very interesting thing as well, because there's so I run pub quizzes. I write my own and then do them out, and there is a point where you learn the last name you're ever going to learn. And so there was a point when I was doing pub quizzes where I was just like, oh, it's a young woman singing, oh, that'll be Dua Lipa. Just if you don't have a guess, you got to put something down and you don't have a clue, and then you're like, do I want to do the research and find out what Sabrina Carpenter sounds like and what Olivia Rodrigo and all like the newer names, or are you just gonna never change your music rounds in your pub quiz? And it is very interesting. I think you sort of have to, if you are going to be in these spaces, put a little bit of effort into knowing what audiences are hearing about. But also, audiences for comedy aren't as young as they were when I started. There was I did a lot of student gigs that I just don't seem to think is the same. I don't think they exist in the same way anymore. That so maybe like the comedy club audiences are aging with that.
Is it harder to know what's going to be in the common vernacular, what's in the common parlance? I mean, once upon a time, the telly that we watched was a small pool, and there was Top of the Pops to tell you about pop music, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like there's especially with stuff where it is just so atomized nowadays of knowing about what's big on Netflix, or like I found I could do stuff about Stranger Things, but I couldn't do it about House of Cards. And that's going back 10 years to the point where like I'm not sure you could do anything about any of the bit like
your sound is cutting out, Paul, from our end.
Traitors is another one that's sort of crossed over into people, even if you don't know, like even if you don't watch it, you know enough about it.
Well, yeah, that's a rare example of something where you've almost focused everybody's attention for that brief period of time on the one common touchstone. I'm looking forward to seeing the Edinburgh Fringe programme for this year and seeing how many people have done the Traitors in their posters or their subject matter. Because what else can you do? The Traitors, Wicked, God, that's it.
Yeah. There's it's always interesting with the Fringe thing because every year there's sort of accidentally a theme that no one's said, oh, okay, this is the year that we all do this, but it'll just pop up in loads of people's different shows. That's the idea that we're all working towards. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yes, I remember a few years when everybody was doing a parody of the Train Spotting poster as their poster for the Edinburgh Fringe. That recurred, as did Doing the Usual Suspects with the lineup of your improv sketch show.
Yeah.
That never got new.
I've got a technical question about the panel that we've got there. So the figure is holding the mic in his left hand. So that seems to be indicative of the artist being left-handed, like Matt Groening in The Simpsons. Is that a consistent thing? Is David left-handed?
I think he's holding it in his right hand. I think if you continue down off the bottom of the panel, you could see that because we're seeing him from his right profile. That could be his right hand.
I mean, obviously, if there's any other panels, then
swiveled round in front of him. Could be a right hand.
Well, the interesting thing is, so I'm going to kickstart a new book when I come back from Australia, and I've got a couple of different titles on it. But one of them it might be I have somehow got worse at drawing hands. Because it might not be any hand. They're just like it's cut off there just because hands are really difficult to draw.
Well, that's another thing that comes back to the picture we're looking at here. And the two pictures we've looked at today, there's a point at which if you get too clever with your drawing, it becomes, I think, less funny. It's no coincidence that the spot cartoons in The New Yorker, which have been appearing now for 100 years, frequently are the simplest possible drawings. 100 years ago, you were getting artists like Thurber, who would keep these drawings to such a level that they almost looked sometimes like a child could have drawn them. And that helps things be funny. If you get to, like, if it was a Victorian etching level, it's taking away from something.
Yeah, one of the rules I have for myself when I draw is that the whole thing needs to be done in an hour. So I'll just usually I listen to a podcast in the background because that helps focus my mind. But I'll pick something with about an hour episode, and that way you're not overdoing it, where you can sit and you can shade and you can draw things into, into way too much detail. Whereas actually, I mean, I remember a guy who used to work for DC Comics picking up my book and just going, "Oh, you've drawn this far too well." Like, it's stupid wordplay. Like, it could be like the dude from XCKD, XKCD. I forget how. Which?
Oh yeah, yes,
But they're
the
literal
parody
stick
site,
figures,
yeah,
and no one has
yeah.
names, and it is just focusing on the joke. I mean, the other way is going. How do I pronounce his name? Nicholas Gudowich, who does Perry Bible Fellowship.
Oh yes.
Where he does 3 a year, but they're works of art. They are just beautiful. Like, and apparently spends 100 hours drawing some of them and full paint and all this business, because he's just like, no, that's the bit I enjoy doing. And but yeah, there's a couple of different ways of going with these things.
The Perry Bible Fellowship, which also used to appear in The Guardian, which is where David Squire's cartoons appear now. The number of cartoons that appear in newspapers has very much fallen off a cliff, along, I suppose, with newspapers themselves.
Yeah, it started roughly the time I started trying to get my work into newspapers. the decline of the funny pages, which is a real shame.
Of all places, Metro, the free newspaper, used to have a cracker. It used to have a strip called Nemi by a Norwegian artist called Lise, who I've met when I did the Bergen Comic Festival. And to seek out and publish daily strips of that quality was a marvelous thing that I suppose the newspapers used to get something out of, and now not so much.
Well,
The interesting thing with Nemi was that because it was Norwegian, was it?
Yeah.
There were occasional ones where you went, "What?" And apparently they had just translated. It worked in Norwegian, and they just translated it straight. Where there was a turn of phrase or a story that they were referring to, but the Guardian the Metro just clearly went, "Yeah, that'll do."
Fills the space, yeah. No, but we can cycle back to Hartlepool with those strips because of Andy Cap coming from Hartlepool.
Of course, Andy
There's
Cap.
even a statue on the headland in West Hartlepool, yeah. I mean, I love the Andy Cap strips, and I know my parents did, but I think with hindsight, when you look at some of them, and certainly I was too young to fully understand some of the context, with Flo standing there with her rolling pin when he comes back from the pub drunk and falls asleep on the sofa, and yeah, I'm not sure that would fly nowadays. But
well, that's the thing, particularly of the newspaper strip, that they reflect the society. And in the case of The Guardian, satire was a big thing. There was Steve Bell's If. There was Doonesbury, my particular favourite. I've got lots of Doonesbury collections. Doonesbury is now down to just the Sunday strip once a week, and it's online that most people consume that. But the daily strip, they made a point, again, in a way that wasn't being done anywhere else.
Stuff does have a life after that. I mean, I found out, I think for the first time about 18 months ago, that there is an Andy Cap musical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The playlist is on Spotify. I did listen to it, and I was talking to some friends who'd actually been in it. And I was completely, what is this alchemy? I've never heard of an Andy Cap musical. It's actually quite good. Certainly the soundtrack is.
There's been a few crossovers over the year. Little Orphan Annie turning into Annie is probably the most famous. I remember from some comics history book I've got that Lil Abner was made into a musical, and at some point in the 1960s, so was Superman, with a play called Is It a Bird? Is It a Plane? No, it was obviously shit.
Well, they tried to do one about 10 or 15 years ago called Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, which was one of the costliest flops in Broadway history. And then because they were trying to do the web slinging real life, and then a bunch of, whilst also having a quite convoluted plot and music. I think it was someone like
it was you too.
Was it you too?
It
Yeah.
was you too.
But it
Bono
was-
and the Edge wrote the Spider-Man musical, which
Yeah.
was a legendary money loser.
The only factoid I know about that is that it was such a big effort that they actually had to put the orchestra in another building down the street, which caused all manner of problems, as you would expect, with feeds and timings and matching entrances and things like that. I just thought, no, it's just, why make more work for yourself? Just have a smaller orchestra and put them in the actual theatre.
You can see the temptation because with the fragmentation of the entertainment industry in recent years, the stage musical, if it works, is one of those remaining surefire ways of making a fortune.
Yeah, it's the when Harry Potter and the Cursed Child came to London, they basically, whatever the theatre was that it's in, the Aldwych Theatre, I think it's in.
It's in the it's the one at Cambridge Circus now. I can't remember what that one's called.
They paid off the play that was there because they just like, this is going to run for 10 years. So thanks for whatever you were, but yep, this will run pretty much daily, and so we can take over the whole building and turn it into, because I think that's part of the cost of as well as the rents and the rates and stuff in central London. Not being but is the changing all of the building to be sort of themed toward your play. They were able to do that and just went, okay, because we know that this will, like, pretty surefire that this is going to be a hit, so we'll just make that.
And looping our whole show subject matter together, I've just had the most brilliant idea for Viz the musical. If it's not already been done,
do you know, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I actually genuinely think that could quite work. Yeah.
There you go. We've sorted the future. Well, thank you so much for bringing in our two examples. Our examples were, tell us again, Paul, what we were looking at from you.
You're looking at David Squires in The Guardian and his football theme strips. I think it's just called that. I think it's just called David Squires. I don't think it has a special name. Also does one for the A-League, which is very interesting, which is the Australian Football League, but not Aussie rules football. They sort of football out in Australia, which is very interesting because it's trying to get jokes you don't have context for. So because he lives out in Australia now, despite being from Swindon. So he does the Garden the Australian one, which is very good as well. So yes, do check him out.
Well, there's niche. And Helen, we were looking at from you.
The Green Grass, Lee Healy and Barney Farmer from Viz. And I went to have a look at Lee's website and I see he's got a whole load of other prints of strips on there that I'm very tempted by. So I'm going to go back and just have a scroll through and see what else I fancy.
Magnificent. Where can the listeners at home find you variously online on the socials? Helen?
I am HQ Voice, initials plus voice, mainly on Instagram. Good old LinkedIn, which is tedious but necessary most of the time, and on my website hqvoice.com.
And Paul, where would we find you?
I am savagecomic.com for the website, where you can see some of my work. About 43 comics for you there. I'm on Savage Comics _ on Instagram, which is the easiest way to find gigs and stuff. And the book, which is currently sat in Sheffield, but hopefully will be back with me at some point that I can start selling it, is called But Doctor, I Am a Collection of Comic Strips by Paul Savage.
Fantastic. Thank you both for joining us. Listener at home, don't forget to like and subscribe and all the rest of it. You've been listening to Comic Cuts, the panel show. I forgot its name momentarily.
That was a dramatic pause, wasn't it?
It was a shit ending, is what it was.
Comic Cuts. We're looking at a panel, and we comprise a panel. There's a few of us. So the panel sees a panel, and we talk about the comics from the panel we discuss, and we call it Comic Cuts.